welcome to our fourth sequel of our tutorial how to play solo jazz piano. The last week we talked about how to improvise a melody and a bass line at the same time. Now, how did that go? You probably had some difficulties first of all, but I can assure you this is just the beginning, and after you've practiced that on a lot of tunes, you'll get used to it, and at some point it just becomes second nature. Just a few points about practicing something like this that requires you to use your brain in a novel way is, first of all, don't practice fast. Always go slow at first, and give your mind the time to process all the information that's going in and do it right. Get the motions right so you don't learn the wrong motions. So it's important to do it slowly but correctly. And you'll see you'll get results much further that way. And if at some point you find that you'll always get stuck at the same point, and that you're always making a mistake at the same position in the tune, don't go back to that position and practice. Start a few bars before, because there was something happening in the tune a few bars before that had led to that mistake later on down the road. And if you start at that position, you're never analyzing what caused the problem in the first place, but you're just analyzing the symptom, so to speak. So in order to get that ironed out, please always practice from before the mistake. Then you'll see much better results in a shorter amount of time. Now, today I want to talk to you about how to integrate playing a melody and chords and the bass line. An obvious solution would be to just play melody and bass line and make a break at some point in the melody, jump down and play a chord. Now that will go like that. Now that will be a possibility. The drawback of this possibility is that you always create holes in the melody and have to take long breaks in order to jump down, play the chord, jump back up. Also, one thing that you need to watch out for is that you make a dynamic distinction between the melody, which is supposed to be louder, and the chord that's supposed to be softer. So you don't go like, because then the brain doesn't process this as two different parts. However, if you distinguish, you get hear it clearly as two different parts. Now, this is not a very flexible way of going about it. It's much more flexible if we can integrate the chords right where our right hand is. And we can do this by using so-called four-way close harmony or block chords. Usually block chords, the way George Shearing and those people played them, were in both hands, but we need our left hand for the bass line, so we're just going to play block chords in the right hand. That means we're playing every note in the melody becomes a four-part chord with the melody on the top. Now if you're in a major scale, and play a major seventh chord with a root on the top, don't play the major seventh, play a sixth chord, because the major seventh clashes with the root. So that's clear. Next inversion is also clear. Next inversion is clear. Next inversion, you can do this. You can do this and arrive back at the same chord you started at. Now what if the melody has other notes, passing tones that are not chord tones? The answer is you can easily fill those up with diminished chords. Diminished. This you can do as a inversion again, diminished, next one, diminished, diminished, inversion, diminished, inversion, diminished, inversion, and there you are. Now with a minor seventh chord you can do much the same thing. Minor seventh, diminished, minor seventh again, next one, again I don't use the ninth to not endanger the melody, diminished, you can play this as a minor 11th, or you can also use a diminished here. Diminished. Next inversion. Diminished. You could do this one either as this kind of chord or this kind of chord, or even a diminished again. Next inversion. Diminished. And back where we started at. With dominant seventh chords, much the same thing. Now, if I have the root on the top, then I would go and play at least an altered fifth in order to not make it sound tacky, because this is a bit simple. So I use this or this. For the next one, you can play the flat ninth. Then for the C, you either play the regular ninth, or I sometimes like to substitute a suspended fourth in there. Here you can either play sharp ninth or diminished. Here you get the next one, either this way or that way. Suspended fourth. Here you can play either flat fifth, or you can play a diminished. Next inversion, sharp fifth, or even a diminished again. 13th chord, either way. 7th, diminished, and back to the root on the top. So you can harmonize a whole song that way. Now what does that sound like? That sounds like a horn section. And in fact, that's what we can use this as to make our playing sound very big band-like. Of course, it would be quite overbearing if we just played that way. So, we use this sparingly. Sometimes if you have a head that's not too busy, it sounds really good doing introducing the head that way as this horn section kind of style. And in fact, I would recommend you to try that first and harmonize the head of a tune with 4-part harmony. First of all, write it out, learn to play it. Then you can start improvising your chords. And then in the end, as a third stage, you play improvised melodies in block chords. Go slow. Don't do this too fast, because otherwise you're just gonna end up frustrated. It takes a while. You will master it, but you have to keep at it. So, what can we do if we don't want this to happen, if we don't want to sound full big band? We could imagine that we're playing a solo instrument that only gets some support from the other horns, and you play. Okay, now one thing, don't do this too high, otherwise, first of all, the chord's gonna sound tacky. And second of all, you have this big distance between the bass and the melody that makes it sound very disjoint. So something like this doesn't sound good. As you can hear, this is too high. But what is effective is to use this high melody and jump down 4 chords like we learned before. So it's effective to play like that. And so on. Also watch out if you don't have this huge register break between the melody and chorus, but keep the chords relatively close to the melody, that you must make a dynamic distinction in order to make the brain distinguish between what is melody and what are chords. So you go play. So, as you see, there's two ways of doing it. Either you accent directly on a melody tone, other alternative is to put the accent after the melody tone. It goes like this. Both varieties have their merits, and with the chords separate from the melody, you'll get this famous Dave McKenna three-handed style that you hear, like there's three distinct layers going on: a melody, the chords, and the bass line. Now, a good habit to develop is to end your phrases with the fourth and fifth fingers, because then you have the rest of the hand to play the chord with. It takes a little bit of practice, because usually those two fingers are our weakest fingers, and our weak fingers have to play loud melody, whereas our strong fingers have to play soft chords. So that takes a little bit of practice to get right, but it's actually easily done if you just be mindful of it. You also don't have to play a full 4-part chord every time, but just a rudiment is enough. It's enough to suggest and just leave it up to the listener to make up the full map of the music. So that's the end of today's tutorial. Practice that again with a lot of different songs. Use slow tempos. I didn't play any up-tempo tune today because I thought it might be confusing, so we stick with mid-tempo and get this right first, get the motion into our hands, and then we move on the next time to a different technique for the left hand, and those are shell voicings and what can be done with them. It's quite a varied topic, so I hope to see you again. Thank you for tuning in. Till next week, bye-bye.